All right, good evening, guys. Counter Tortoise Capital Nightly Strategy Podcast for October 30th, 2023. I want to start with a quick digression into some work that we did with the Foundations course yesterday. And it has to do with self-perceptions, who we think we are, who we're trying to be, and what we think other people are thinking about us, how we think they perceive that. All that goes into shaping how we decide to communicate and how to act. So the first thing we did was we took a look at some trade-offs and forced choices. We had to pick a position on A versus B. So we said, am I a person who favors knowledge, or am I a person that favors empathy of other people's emotions? And so I'm going to answer that for how I see myself. So this was a score sheet from one of the guys in the Foundations. And the first thing that he did was to go through each of these trade-offs and then decide where he was. And then after he did that, he said, well, how do others see me? I asked him for my own purposes and for this research to also then say, how does he see me? Because I'm interested in how other people see me so that I can determine if what I'm trying to portray or represent is coming through. And if so, awesome. If not, why not? And then what is that doing to my communication if I think they see me in a certain way, but they don't actually see me in that way? So what I asked these guys to do was first to score themselves, how they see themselves, and then how to see how they think others see them. So this person sees himself as a person who is concerned about empathy, but he believes that other people see him as focusing on knowledge. Well, that's an interesting divergence. If you see yourself as a feeling person primarily, but you think other people see you as a cognitive-based or a rational person, is that deliberate? Or is it just you can't help it? In spite of yourself, no, am I really trying to show that I'm a person of empathy or a person of knowledge? What is it that you are emphasizing in your external contact with others that makes them think that you are a person who cares most about knowledge and not about empathy, whereas you see yourself as a person of empathy? How does that confusion or that divergence affect your relationships with others? Do they act towards you on the basis of appealing to your reason, whereas you're making your decision based on emotions and that's what you value? What kind of problems could that cause? And then sort of quickly, are you a detail person, or do you care about the meanings of things? Are you trying to get at accurate representations, or are you looking at the overall big picture, what it means? Do you favor getting to clarity with others, or are you seeking to achieve harmony? Do you thrive in order or chaos? If you had free time, would you spend it reading by yourself, something new, or something you like? But if you had or would you rather spend it traveling in a group that you hadn't met before to some place where you'd never been? Do you prefer the real and the now, or do you prefer thinking about the possibilities and the future? Would you prefer to listen or to talk? Do you favor structure or flexibility in decision making? How do you set up your world? To promote structure or to promote flexibility? And why? Are you better at it, or do you just like it? Do you find working in a group energizing or tiring? Do you see yourself as more normal or more weird? Do you see yourself as emotionally tough or emotionally sensitive? Would you prefer to plan ahead or improvise? So when this trader goes through that, the discrepancies are in red, where we've already seen the knowledge and empathy, but he sees himself as a person who would rather spend time traveling in a group to someplace new, but he thinks other people would prefer to read by himself. So maybe he doesn't get as many invitations to go out because people think, well, he didn't want to go. He'd rather just stay by himself. What is he missing out by that difference in perception? Is it intent? And you can always ask, are these intentional or accidental? And how did you determine that they see you in that way? What is the evidence? Do you compare it to what you're sending? Are you trying to make it a difference? Or how would you change that perception if you could? So he's got a journal now that he's done this work, and he's taking notes on all these things to see what he can see and to see what it will reveal about the self that he now sees in this mirror. And we have other people over here now seeing through this kind of distorting lens, right? He's a person is really focusing on the here and now, but he thinks other people believe that he is concerned more about the future and possibilities. He would rather talk more. He thinks other people think that he likes to listen more. And then finally, he sees himself as emotionally sensitive, but he thinks other people are seeing him as emotionally tough. Does that mean that they are less guarded with him and bombarding him with emotions? And is he feeling emotional stress that they don't think is stressful because they think he's emotionally tough? So they act in a certain way. Is he giving himself grief? Well, if we think about ourselves in that way, how we think we are or try to be, and then how we think people are reacting to us, and we may or may not be satisfied with the outcome of that discrepancies, because it could be intentional, or maybe it's accidental, or maybe those are areas of tension and strife. But what I want you to realize is that as humans, we're pretty complex. And I'm, here's person A and here's person B, and person A is going to send a message, this red arrow, to person B. And I've got this represented now as a person. This is their conscious and intentional self. That big red, this is the unconscious that they're not even aware of. And then this is the hidden layer, which you're choosing not to reveal to the other person. So this is the area of the unconscious. And this is the area of the hidden. And this is the area of the public, if we can say it that way. So when this person A is constructing a message to send, it's from we're thinking it's my visible public self sending a carefully crafted message to their visible public self. And we know that they're going to think about it in their hidden layer behind their face. And then they're going to come to some conclusion, and then we think they're going to send us some information back. And we sort of take that as given. But what I want you to realize is that we are really complex sensory beings. And there's a lot of things going on that we're not even aware of. If we said this was our conscious mind and our subconscious mind and our unconscious mind, if we rotated that, then that sort of is what's in our unconscious mind, not just the sum of our experiences and our mental state, but it's all our culture, our education, our history, our unconscious biases. Who knows what else is all operating on us? Is media operating on us? The world sending signals into us, into our unconscious, and that thing is filtering into us to influence how we think and decide without us really being aware of that. And then when it gets over into the conscious level, we think we're making some choice to hide this and show that. But how much of that is really being pushed onto us and shaped by the things we're not even aware of, and our backgrounds and our stereotypes and culture. So let's see what's really going on in when we try to send that little message. Well, we certainly have the conscious message into their conscious sensory organ, but what we're showing is also influencing their hidden layer, and what we're sending is also influencing their unconscious layer. Like, these are things that they're aware of, that they're seeing us do, that we think are hidden, but they can see it. And then these are the things that their unconscious is picking up about our public face that we're not even aware of. Or are we? And then our hidden layer is showing them things that's influencing their unconscious. And our hidden layer is influencing their hidden layer. And our unconscious layer is talking to their hidden layer. And our unconscious layer is talking to their unconscious layer. So when we start looking at all of the different complex waves that are going on, and we wonder what's in charge of our cognitive processes that are allowing the unconscious things to bubble up into our subconscious and to bubble up into our unconscious. And then of the 7 things that we can actually be aware of at any one time, says cognitive complexity theory, and we decide to show those 2 and hide those 5, there's literally thousands and millions and more things going on under the surface that are speaking simultaneously. So one of the ideas then that we have in true storytelling is this idea that when we gather together to try our best truths about the topic at hand, that we're making a deliberate effort in this safe, trusted space to be as transparent as we can, so that we are at least reducing or exposing the hidden layer, and then as much of the unconscious layer as we can. But we're also going to be open to the feedback that we get that may ask us questions that cause some of these things to come out. Now, we may never be able to get into that unconscious one, but at least we can do more about showing our hidden layer and doing our best to have an impulse, a wedge between our impulse to act. We have these impulses to act that are coming out of this unknown darkness. We have an impulse to act. At least we can now think about having a wedge of mindfulness and say that even when I feel these urges to act in a certain way, I can render it into conscious thought and then make a deliberate decision on what to do and then own the consequences. So the idea of mindfulness then is to live an intentional life in such a way that we place an impulse, or we place a wedge in between these biological impulses to act and the knee-jerk reaction of putting it immediately into action without thinking, in order that we can be fully accountable for consciously living in a certain way. And what that means is that we really, if we put ourselves in the middle of that true story circle when we're telling our stories, then we accept that the feedback that we're going to get from our trusted others is going to be as truthful as they can make it, so that we may thrive and then that allows us to be open and vulnerable to that kind of feedback. So imagine you're working with an accountability partner, and on 5 of the 12 different dimensions, there are fundamental perception differences between how you see yourself and how you think they see yourself. You actually really want to know, back and forth, how do you see me, and what are you hearing, and how is that feeling, and how does that respond to you, and then operate on the basis of trust and truth, and acting in such a way that each other may thrive. And then operating on that basis, we can progress further in our collaboration on the basis of shared understanding. So that's one of the psychological exercises that's we've just added to the foundations course, and that we're engaged in the process. So I'm actually collecting from those guys how they see me, because I want to compare how they see me with how I think they see me, to see if my estimate of what I think they think is correct. So that's the latest internal research process. And then who is to say, who is that, which one is right? Is it how I see myself? Is that the ideal state? Am I just kidding myself? Or shouldn't I say that how others see me might actually be how I actually am? There's some food for thought. What if they're right? Of course they're right. They're the expert on their process. Am I going to say, no, that's not how you see me? No. But if they say that's how they see me, can I trust that? In true story circles, we state, yeah, I'm going to accept what you say as truth. And that is an act of courage and trust in the other, because it opens you up. It opens up your vulnerability that you're going to accept what they say as truth, so that you can be better, because you feel what their intentions are. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about it. I just feel like that's such an important process model and structured exercise that you will be glad that you tried that on, if you try that on. And then I'd really just like you to think about, is it any wonder that the market is a chaotic place when you have market participants who are not trying to be truthful and transparent with each other, but are sending signals all the time in many different ways to try to influence the behavior of others in such a way that you can prosper? Now, that leads you into, say, what are the ethics of communication in markets? And that's why we have the SEC. Trust in God, all others pay cash. Let the buyer beware. As long as there are humans in the market, what is apparently true probably is the only thing you can rely on as not being true. So trying to see through the fog, feeling your way through it, listening for danger, sensing opportunities is what we are all about. Okay? All right, let's jump into the... hopefully you found that interesting. Let me know in the chat if you enjoyed that, if that was helpful. All right, so let's start with the 30-minute bars and the hybrid swing, starting with Alcoa. And Alcoa finally broke out of this funk and broke above the previous highest RL10 of that series, going back 5 days. So there's an emerging dragon with standard risk, and that thing just blew up and closed well. And that was one where, with 4R in hand, I have a cushion to hold that overnight. I'll put the stop underneath the edge of the dragon and try to lock in 3. Yeah, Tucker, just imagine how interesting that kind of conversation is with your kids and your spouse and your friends and your coworkers and your subordinates and your boss. One of the really powerful things. So the issue there is when you have these instruments that ask you to self-report, everybody likes to say, oh, well, you know, those are not really accurate because it's only feeding back to you what you are saying. It's when you use it in the way that I just described, where you imagine, what the other person is seeing through the binoculars about what you're sending. See, you think you're sending this. You see that about yourself in the mirror of your reflection. But what you're sending to the mirror for you to study is what you're sending to them to form impressions. Although they see more than just your front face. They can see around you, and they see your reflections in other things, and other people that are over here seeing you are telling them what they see. So this is where the idea of thick face black heart comes from Chinese philosophy, which is that the idea that at the center of us there is this there's this black heart of intention surrounded by layers and layers and layers of personas that we create or that people perceive, and that what we're trying to do is peer into the darkness to see what their true intention is, to see if they mean us good or ill. And they, because they don't know us, they may be trying to erect these defensive barriers to prevent us understanding who they truly are in the heart. And then we're trying to learn from the way they behave in certain circumstances if they are trustworthy and how much we can trust them at. And then we have to decide how much of our defensive barriers do we let them see through into our center. And why do we open ourselves up to that vulnerability? Because the world will teach you to protect yourself, to erect these barriers. So the act of doing true storytelling is really a deliberate act of intentional will that goes against our primitive animal nature to defend ourselves. It's why the power of the tribe and the family is so strong, because they start off in the privileged position of having your trust and love all together. And so I can tell them things and they can see things and I can trust them with my vulnerabilities. But when the other comes in, I don't know who. So how do I vet them? How do I bring them into my circle of trust, and how far? How much do I reveal? And that's one of the essential ideas behind true storytelling, which then has to do with the ethics of how we treat other people's offered vulnerability. That's non-trivial. How do you think we got into the trouble in the Middle East? It's precisely because of that thick-faced black heart, which stands at the other end of the spectrum from the human social experience, from true storytelling. This is important stuff. How do you build a trusted tribe of business collaborators or trading partners? Anyway, so here we are, 4R, I digress, in Alcoa. Okay. In AI, what we had was, excuse me, we had a gap way up to here, and then it sold off harshly from the top of the day, and it fell more than a risk box, and it was coming back to the Bollinger Band mean, which is this red line. So we just took the usual short with a standard risk box, and this thing collapsed hard through the collapsing dragon right here. Notice how when that collapses, you get another fast move down. It bottomed out, it reversed, it hit the edge of the dragon, so we took the dragon exit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 4R, and no overnight risk. I really like that one. Amazon. We took the PSAR flip and a COTA 2 entry when the R10 went through the PSAR flip, and we cashed an R towards the end of the day. No overnight risk. Because we're back in sideways volatile now, so I want to minimize my overnight risks unless I have a lot of money in hand as a buffer. This is Caterpillar. This is the SSC, so you have the downward slice, the rebound off the bottom, PSAR flip, standard risk, 1R, no overnight risk. Notice how it's coming into the station. It just recently entered the summer, but started to stall. So that's not one I want to hold overnight. So we'll take one and go. Cliff, no trade. CVS, good one. Now this is one where Friday was the tail end collapse and punishing downward move. Today it gapped up, kept running, bought it on strength after the PSAR flip, standard risk. It went up through the spring and the summer and closed very well on 2R, and there's still room to believe it can get to here before it becomes back to normal fair value. This is where it was before it collapsed. So with 2R in hand, I'm willing to let it run for another day. Disney, reversed with the PSAR flip. It closed very well for 1.5 hours. Same thing, holding it. Dish, PSAR flip. I waited till it crossed the Bollinger Band mean because it was really choppy. This was after a gap up, harsh sell-off, and then held. And then the dragon turned and the RL30 turned. So that's an owl entry at the Bollinger Band mean, and it really didn't follow through, so a fraction. Devon Energy, the dragon rolled over. I took the COTA 2 short for 2R, cashed it at the skin of the dragon. Electronic Arts, 4R, dragon exit. Emerging markets, 1R on the gap and fail, and then cashed 1R after it began to rebound inside the dragon. So just take one and go home. Ethereum, no trade, missed the morning move. Mexico, no trade. Brazil, this one was, oh man, a continuation of last Friday. So last Friday, we smashed that one with 3 positions short, and then took it right at the, as it was stalling. And good thing we did that, because it gapped all the way up into here, which would have basically washed out that trade. But what it did was gapped here and then started to fail, failed through the Bollinger Band mean, took it short with a standard risk, and then the bottom fell out of it. RL10 reversed up, took the dragon skin exit for 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a harsh winter starting to stall. So we'll take 4R and go home. Check or hold. Intel. This was a quiet belief in the possibility of tech and the fact that after Friday's big gap up, it just held and then started to show some strength. So I decided to hold that, even though that's only +1. It's just this failure to fail and then the reversal of the river. That feels like it was pausing to refresh and go. So I wanted to be in front of that one in case there's a gap on turnaround Tuesday to the upside. So we'll see. IP, no trade. Real estate, big gap up, horrible sell-off, which I missed. PSAR flip and an SSC. And, I saw this as a double bottom, and I was willing to put the 1R in hand in case that goes tomorrow with the gap. So we'll see. Coca-Cola, very orderly, caught a 2 after a strong up move off the lows. Orderly sell-off, gap up and go. And then it closed very well for 3R above the dragon, which is rising. Real estate, same thing, 2R. This is Mattel, no trade. That's settling into a really nice sideways quiet channel and compression, getting ready to pop. McDonald's, I couldn't get my arms around that. It was so wild during the day. I just stayed away. But man, is that in play tomorrow. Merck, big gap up, harsh sell-off, came through the VWAP, got short, standard risk, 1R exiting right around the PSAR before the end of the day. Routine. That was almost like the opposite of McDonald's. It was so lack of volatility. Microsoft, long on the gap up and clearing the dragon hump. That's almost an emerging dragon. It got a little traction and then secured itself around the VWAP and then just kept grinding. So I almost felt like this was like Intel, a stealth tech trade for tomorrow. Marijuana, no trade. Nvidia, no trade. Clean energy, big gap up. Then it continued its downward slide, so I got short. It's got smashed to the downside and stayed there and closed poorly. So we're holding 1R on that one, and I'm thinking there's another day's worth of downward pressure. Rivian, I just missed the short altogether. Span of control. S&P, you can see was generally an up day, and it closed very well. Treasuries, sideways chop, no trade. Tesla, collapsing dragon short, 3R, and a dragon exit. U.S. Steel. I tried the Kata 2 long. It immediately failed in R. That's one of the consequences of having such a tight RL10. So we lost one, and then I re-entered on the rebound, gained one back to make that scratch in the revenge trade, and then no overnight risk. So pretty good day at work. Potential recovery turnaround day. All right, let's go to... where's the sniper trade? Oh, let me say this before we get any further. So all of the we're getting a lot of charts now posted, multiple charts for multiple traders. I insist that you do this now, that you include a snapshot of your daily after action review if you post more than one chart. All right? And that is, I want you to look at your 4 phases of planning, preparing, executing, and assessing. And I want you to consider what you did in each one of those phases that you considered correct or strong. These are things that you want to keep doing, or it's bad habits that you avoided. So the things to continue. And then under improves, These would be things that you did that you want to omit, or things that you didn't do that you should have. So these are things to improve on, and you do that for each one of these. Now, once you take a look at your sustains and improves, and I would do this by phase. These were my sustains for planning, my improves for planning, and then what are a couple things that I could do, and write those out to take advantage of. What is my call to action? Call to action. And then you just list the things that are potential actions for tomorrow. And then after you do that for each one of those planning phases, I want you to pick 1 to 2 things maximum. And if it's just one, that's fine, that you're going to commit to for tomorrow. And then what's your accountability plan? How are you going to make sure that you do the things that you said you were going to do? So if you're posting multiple charts, I want you to do that. You should be doing that anyway. But if you're posting charts in the room, then that will tell me that we're getting some process improvement, and you're not just showing snapshots of the messes that we're making out of our I mean, they're pretty good trading today, but I say that facetiously. Okay? So take a snapshot of that when you see it. All right. All right. So this is our sniper trade of the day. This is on 3-minute charts. So here was the close, and here is the VWAP. So that's an important fair value mark from yesterday. From here was the gap up. It sold off a little bit, then rode all the way up to here and closed. So that now creates our OR3, which means we'd be willing, if you're willing to trade that, to go long from there or short from there. Now, what did it do? Well, it opened here, sold off this low, came to here. It opened here, ran up through the VWAP, and then came down, and then broke through the low of that second bar. Now, because of the size of that OR3, this was actually an MMRB, and it had fallen more than that from the high of the day. It had fallen almost 2 MMRBs, and so I thought strongly about just entering there, because I saw that with 1 MMRB, if this thing came all the way back to yesterday's VWAP and closed that gap, I could get a 3 or a 4R to the reasonable target of closing the gap. In fact, even if it just got to the bottom of the OR3, I could have had 2 units of reward for the 1 unit of risk. Check or hold. So that's one of the ways that you can think about being aggressive in what was a bear volatile market that had a huge gap up but was starting to fail and felt like it was closing the gap. So study that one in the replay. Now, I didn't take that trade, but I saw that trade. Wished I'd taken it, because there's a 2R win. And now what I get instead is this one. This is a little more orderly in that opening 3 to 5 minutes. You know, I had other trades going on, and so this is not one that I took. But now we're about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, I could have seen that from the gray. So now we're 30 minutes in, and the RL10 has peaked, bottomed out, and reversed. So now this is starting to feel like what kind of pattern? What is that pattern? If I have a reversal in the R10 here, and if I have a peak of the R10 here, any entry north of that blue line would be an emerging dragon. This makes it a Kata 2. The PSAR never wavered. Notice that the dragon is starting to roll up. That makes this a reasonable Kata 2. And then I have a reasonable belief that it could get as high as the high of the day. And if it breaks north of that, I should be free and clear. But if this, if the bottom of the dragon and the PSAR fails right there, I could be a collapsing dragon on that to the short side, still aiming towards yesterday's VWAP. It would have to get through the low of the day, but if it did, then I'd feel pretty confident. And then if it gets through that low of the day, it's also going to get through the Bollinger Band mean. So now I've treated this as a compound critical state ready to go large in either direction, and that's why that is a reasonable entry. That's a standard pattern. That's a template. You could just make that a template and study the flashcard. In fact, both of those, the trade we didn't take and then that one, are both templates. Now, by this time, you know, this is what you notice. That your entry has done a nice job of running all the way up to here. So by that time, I actually have probably two execution R in hand, and now it has come back almost to the edge of the dragon. There's the spine of the dragon, there's the lower skin of the dragon, and there is also the PSAR. So I could reasonably say, as I look at this, I'm going to hit that in red, that little bar is a doji that's opening right there. I could say exit 1, take the trade for almost 2R. That's about 1.5R. I could take, let me take that bar, which would be a 1, 2, 3 low, and call that exit 2. I could take the upper skin of the dragon at 3, the spine at 4, the lower skin of the dragon at 5, the PSAR, which is a break even, at 6. 4 and 5 are really no lose plus dinner for 2. You know, if you were here or here, you'd get paid, you would get paid a little bit if you took 4 or 5. The only one I won't let you take is 6. If you're 2R in hand and your stop is at break even, shame on you. I can't say it any more bluntly than that. So you see the array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where is your stop, knowing that you had 2R in hand from here, and it's now right here? And you've given back this much already. I see some 3s. Yeah. Reasonable. I see a 2 and ready to re-enter. So now you say, if you do get out at 2, where do you re-enter? Above the The high of the day? Reasonable. So if you did 2 or 3, you got out because it actually touched the skin of the dragon and went below the low of the of that signal bar. If you were trailing with the PSAR, you're still in. If you were trailing with the lower bar of the dragon, you probably got out like right there. So you might have gotten out here or here. You might have almost gotten out there. Hard to say. If you were the re-entry guy and if you had gotten out of those, but you were also committed to the re-entry play, then you probably got back in right around in here or in here. Either one of those would be acceptable as re-entries. And again, re-entry is the key to sanity. And if you had that move up into here, means that those re-entries should never lose money. Even though that thing came down to here, those entries should never lose money after a move that high. Meanwhile, we're cruising. Now, we're at the, we can study this again. And now what I have is leg 1, pause, leg 2, there's the peak, and now it's come back, and the PSAR has moved up with the skin of the dragon, spine of the dragon, upper skin of the dragon, and the R10 right about there. Can't you just feel a proper exit right around in here? After a re-entry down in this region, if you had gotten out here. If you didn't get out here, you might or might not have added that second position. I did not. But you can feel how you're stalking that exit. Check or hold. And then your decision is there a, if this fails, do I have a short trade down here to what is the VWAP? Because if my risk box was something like that, I might have a trade in there. Or I might be saying, if I do exit here, maybe all I need to do is plot for the third leg, so maybe I will see a sell-off, and then I might see the third leg. That would be my preference. Because then I have leg 1, leg 2, leg 3 I can believe in, but this thing had a big gap up and 2 really strong legs up. Not the easiest thing to short. I'd rather short a weaker stock that was already failing. So make your plans, write that down. I exit at the intersection of all that junk. Now, what I get is a high a lower high. Here's that lower low. What pattern is this? So this would be leg one. That would be leg two. First leg gets me to the VWAP, a reasonable move. Yeah, that's a collapsing dragon because you have, and it's also kind of a kata too because you have the added advantage of a lower high. It's already tried to go and it couldn't, and there was less power in this move than there was in that move, which is why you got a lower high. That's the importance of seeing those turning points in the R10s. Plus, you now have a nice PSAR trend going the other way. So, short, hoping for a return all the way down here. And I noticed that from this trade, Lazy Man's PSAR exit, 1 unit of risk, 2 units of reward, probably a third. So I've got +3 on this one, and I'm just going to roll one speculative market's money into that one and bank 2 and then put 1 onto that. Check or hold. So I want to get paid and put that in the kitty. Went nowhere, so it's kind of a scratch or a micro loss. That's also a stop and reverse for me because it's early in the day and we've had 2 strong legs up and the short failed. This thing is just grinding and not doing much, but oh. And fuego. So you just got to take a little heat. It was only underwater ever that much. The PSAR never budged. Notice that the river is starting to accelerate on this leg up and that leg up. This stabilized. That was a very healthy sign. That made this feel pretty good. So I better have my stop. If I'm in this position, just kind of wake up. I could be at break even. That's always wrong. Bollinger Band mean. Notice how the change in the PSAR dot, we went from 0.2, 0.12 to 0.2 and 0.14. Just that little difference now is bringing the PSAR in alignment with the lower skin of the dragon and simplifying our life a little bit. So this is 1, 2, 3. Spine, skin, 2 bar low, 4, 5, 6. 6 means you're just going to cash it right there. 4, about 2R. Do you want 2R? Or do you want to give it a little more room by picking 1 through 5? I would consider 2 is no lose plus dinner for 2. 3 is preserving plus 1R. This is a little better. That's 2R, so this is probably about 1.5. Yeah, Bill, send me a note there. What do you want me to emphasize? Or just say it. Go ahead, Bill. What do you want to emphasize?
I wanted to say, because I see you say this stuff every night, but the decisional points where you got out, tried to take a second, and then and then eventually stopped and reversed. That is all rules. That is all rules. That's the critical hard because guys will say, oh, well, it didn't go up, so therefore it must go down. No, that's not what that says. That says have a set of rules in place in case, well, it didn't really go up this time. Let's have a set of rules that governs not what I feel, right?
Yep.
But a set of rules that dictates what my actions are.
Yeah.
I
So if
think
we,
sometimes we,
if we go look at this thing, the rule over here was you had a strong leg up. It stopped
yeah,
there. It came down to this measured low. It went up to this lower high, and then started to fail. Now I have the Kata 2 formation in play.
right,
Now
which,
that's why I got short.
correct. But that's governed
So it's a
by a
combination of
set of your rules.
yeah, it's governed by the Kata 2 formation and the collapsing dragon. It takes both of those to get short something that had two strong legs up. And there was a target to the VWAP, which gave me a 2R not unreasonable
Right,
gain.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's what
meanwhile,
I was
yeah,
saying is
yeah,
some
that's right.
guys think that this is a mystical thing
No,
that you're,
no,
it isn't.
no.
Well,
I got a set of about 5 templates,
right.
and I'm just putting those pieces of plastic on there and say, does that look like my template? Can I structure that trade like a T square
Yep,
and a carpenter's triangle to
yep.
just draw angles and draw lines,
Like when we were
flapping over.
hanging the pipe. When we
Yep,
were hanging that pipe in your
yep,
house, how
yep.
did he know that the board was going to be there? Because of the set of rules that applies in this situation.
Templates, simple. Keep it
Yep.
simple.
That's why you guys got to learn those templates, and
Repetitions.
that's when you will see it. Sorry,
So,
that's all I
so,
wanted to say.
so, all right. Um,
Thanks.
where do you put your stops, fellas? Do you take the exit? I see some votes for 3, which locks in 1R. That's reasonable, and you're giving it some wiggle room. I personally like 5 or 6 because I like to make 2. I think I probably had the PSAR and the RL10. But, any one of those rules makes you money. This was sort of the last gasp of a dying man here, because now look how even the lazy Bollinger Band main just says, why are you making this so hard? Well, because this could have come straight back and gotten you out here instead of here. And then you'd feel dumb. But notice how leg 1, leg 2, and now leg 3 is really petering out. And now look at the RL 30. If the RL 10 equals the price, RL 30 equals what? The owl. Wisdom. Slow and smooth and steady. Here was the peak. Here was the turning point in the next leg of the owl. Look how smooth that little guy is. So this was leg 1 in the owl. This was leg 2 in the owl. Now you got the 10 rolling over, the 30 cascading over. That thing is really done because it's coming into the station where the Bollinger Band mean is. Look how big the difference was between the peak of the RL30 and the Bollinger Band mean. This is the RL30. This is the SMA 30. And here's the VWAP. So there's a little bit of value in the river, a lot more value created in the owl, RL30. They came back together, the RL30 and the SMA 30 right here. That was the big question mark. What's it going to do? Fail to the VWAP or go? We had one position on and a reasonable risk. It went up. and here's the second time it rolls over, and now it's getting towards lunch, that's a really good exit. And I think that was the grind into the rest of the day. Nothing, that was the end of the day. Too late to do anything, and that was really not much to see. Notice how at the end of the day, all this stuff, when it all calms down, it all comes back together. Now, this is what is really interesting for tomorrow. They were willing to hold it at a price much higher than the VWAP. They were willing to hold it with a 50-cent premium off the VWAP. So anybody holding here overnight is optimistic that tomorrow it's going to keep going. Not me. I take my money and run, and I just say, look, it came into the station. This is just noise, and they're willing to hold it. So if I just make that sort of my zone for tomorrow, and treat that as a compound critical state, maybe if it gets above 25.40 tomorrow, I want to be long because it's building on all of this power. If it breaks south of that, I probably, I want to be short. And my target would be back to the VWAP, which is from 25.30 to 24.80 is 50 cents, which means that I have about a 20 cent, if I can have a 20 cent risk box, then I can make that trade tomorrow. And if it keeps going, it's easy. So that's how I think about that tomorrow. So if I can do that, if I can get 5R intraday with no overnight risk, do I really need to hold that and subject myself to 16 hours of news, which is going to move the price around? Or just wait and see. What kind of market? The market was good enough that it went from bearish volatile up to sideways volatile. Do you think I want to hold that overnight? I do not. That solves my equation. Sniper trade of the day. Let's take a look at the traders. Hamad is back from military service. He thought about this one. He should think harder. Gets short here instead of here. Covers. This should be a stop and reverse. He waits for this one to get long. Gets paid for 0.8. This was minus 0.7. As you were. He did stop and reverse. I didn't see the box. So he gets the first position, second position, exits on the peak at the skin of the dragon for 2.5. Yay. Now you're talking. And stayed out of the chop. Tesla. 3-minute charts. Plus 2.8 net. Let's see how we did it. Quick loss. Sees the PSAR flip, gets short. Second position. Covers. Correct. That's plus 4. Tries this one, quick cut. Tries this one, quick cut. Tries this one, gets a paid, and then stays out of it. So keeps 2.8. That's pretty good. Keeps about 70% of the open gain. Stays out of the chop. Good job. Grinding for 0.2. He got the one that was there. So really nicely done. Let's see. This is Kilo KK. I'm trying to remember. Put your full name on there so I can remember. Let's see. Sees the gap up. Sees the dimensions. Tries the kata 2. We should be, instead of exiting here, which is a full risk, we should be getting out. See that PSAR? Get out right there and then get short here instead of short here, and then you make that instead of losing that. But this is a good short on the collapsing dragon. Gets paid. We could have added a position on the R10 wiggle. I think that exit is premature. I think you should be getting out here. Then this is long. He got what was available. And, oh, Kurt Cryer. Okay, sorry, I take it all back. This is on EWW. So net's 0.6. Pretty good work. This is Kurt Cryer. This is Joe's son. Well done. First trade. Just started the course with us. Really nice work. All right, if you're going to do the WMB3, then I insist that you bring the MACD histogram from up here, bring it down here so I want to be able to read the percent %R, and when that checks, I can look straight up to see the MACD. And then when that hits, I can then go straight up to see the candle breakout. Because now what I got to do is I have to look at this and see, oh, there's an oversold. Now I have to jump all the way up here to see MACD histogram uptick. If you can see upticks in there, you got young eyes and better than me. You might need to just get rid of the Red River so that these bars stand out more. But then what you want to do is put signal 1, signal 2, signal 3, and price. And that way you can just read up and to the right. Simplify your life, especially when you're looking at a lot of charts. And then if you can see that light tan on a white background, again, young eyes. You have to open your eyes wide, which means you're getting all that white light from this screen and it's hurting your eyes. And now, make these things bigger so an old man can see them. There was a WMB3. So it started off on the W, overbought. So now I got to go up here and see where was the uptick here. And now I got to come down to the bars and see there's my upwards tick. And so there's an entry and a stop here and an exit there. So that's good. This entry, there's the overbought. See, it's hard to read. I'm going to assume that you got that about right. Your stop stayed in place. I don't know where your exit is. Second position. And still it. So I don't know. Don't know what's going on. So we got to work on our presentation and then summarize this so that we can see what's going on. Tesla. This is Sam. Net 0.22. I'm going to say, look, here's a gap up. Here it rolls over. Okay, so that's yesterday. Fine. It comes to here. Now, We got to be short here because this is a COTA 2, and you say, hey, it had already moved a range stat. Yesterday it moved a range stat. You're measuring this from yesterday. This is today. This is the high of the day. It has only moved that far today. So this is a short. We should be hitting that and then reversing here and then taking that one. So this is good as it is, but we should have been able to catch this and this and this and this using exactly the same rule set. So we'll work on that. Now, let's see. So here's the start of the day. It's monkeying around the VWAP and then breaks down through the PSAR. That's a COTA 2. If you wanted to call it a collapsing dragon because it broke below the dragon, I would accept that. That's how we first... Lately, we've been saying that's the RL10 breakpoint. So I accept that as a good short. You're in the winter. Now, you've chosen the VWAP and this as your stop. This is supposed to fail right away. It does not. It actually gives you a COTA 2 entry to the long side right here. So if that's a good COTA 2 entry, that means that my short was not working and I'm already at about minus 0.5. So just cut that and either stop and reverse with an entry here or take the entry as it crosses the VWAP. Either one of those entries would be acceptable. But don't suffer the entire loss. Then this is an entry. And up it goes. Right back over to yesterday's support. Probably a Z3 pinch. If that's not an entry, then this is on a collapsing dragon. Now notice this is the same pattern as we saw during the other markup. I got a high, I have a lower high, and I have that. So now I have a 1, 2, 3 collapsing dragon. A high, a measured low, which is also resting right on the VWAP. At 3, that's lower than 1, so 2 becomes my target for a collapsing dragon, and then I get this move. Okay? COTA 2s galore, rode it through the grind for 1.2. Perfect. Mark gets... So this is the first chart of Mark en route to a 15-hour day. Big green compared to little red as he's letting his profits run. I will let you guys download and study, but this is correct, 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 all the way through. Here's minus a half. I think you started grinding a little bit in here. Maybe that was excessive, but these other ones are reasonable. I think you were late to get into this one for sure. The entry or the gap up was down around here. We might have been in earlier, and then you let it stay too long. You should be out at the edge of the dragon and not 4 bars later here. And then that would let you be short there instead of here, which would add, that would add about 2R. Instead of being down a half, you'd be up 1.5. 6R, 1 position, 2 position, great exit. Your re-entry is here, not here. That's a long right there, then that pays off. You should be short here, not there. Long, that's correct. You could stop and reverse right there. after two strong legs down and it didn't go anywhere, got nowhere near the VWAP, shoot, you could be short there, and that could be a second position. This could have been 10. So good job on 15R for the day, but maybe it was 25. We could have had a second position on this one since we got about 6R on that one. There's a logical break point right there for a second position. And then we didn't even get this one. So an abundance of opportunity. Great work. Great work. There was one of this was probably span of control. And notice he's trading these live now. So now he's getting skin in the game, good fills, accurate from the broker. That's the best simulator you ever had, was the market itself. Span of control. And now self-coaching. Put that in black text so we could read it. 15R for the day was probably should have been 25. Self-coaching. Glad with the results and grateful. Now, here's what you got to do on a 15R day. You got to take all of the feelings. Hooray. Double plus good. Excitement. Enjoy. Squash that and just say, that is the new normal. Zero state. Leave it alone. All you got was what you were supposed to get. So make rules, get to the zero state, squeeze all the life out of it, get to the emotional zero state and just say, and create expectations and standards. Become professional and just say, that's what a professional is supposed to do. Find your joy elsewhere. Be quietly satisfied. All right, now, this is George. I'm going to say, where are we on the run up? If that's my wrist box, and I have a wrist box off the bottom, somewhere in here, there's entries with an exit here. And now look at, here's our pattern. Nice run up, a high, a low at the Bollinger Band, a lower high. What should I be right here? Short. And now this one gets paid instead of losing a half. So I want to know where we are. We might have even have been aggressive and gotten this. I want to know where we were here and why we're not here. And now you're trading in the middle of the chart. I like that anyway, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that, and you did cut it loose short. But look at these moves that are outside of the Red River. We got to see that. And then when it broke through into the winter, we got to see that. Pretty good, much better. Miss this one, and miss that one. And you're only on 1 minute chart, so that's happening pretty quick. If you're getting burned out, then we got to build our cardiovascular system and emotional resilience. Stuck around way too long on this one. So I should be short here or here and not here, although I understand why. But this is supposed to fail right away. When it breaks through the Bollinger Band main, exit here. Don't eat all of that. I would want it to have been short there, to be honest. 1, 2, 3. Emerging dragon. You got to see those turning points in the RL10. Those are really crucial. Turning point, there's a Kata 2. This is a stop and reverse. That's a great hit. Good job on that one. So made money on that one. There's a collapsing dragon up there somewhere. Somewhere up in here. When this thing breaks through the zero line and leaves the Red River, somewhere in here, I'm supposed to be short, and I get this trade with an exit at the skin of the dragon, and then long here, exit at the skin of the dragon. Get on board these big fat moves, not in the middle of the chop, in lunchtime. You got to trade them when they're moving, not when they're calm. Same thing. Same thing. Same thing. You're trading in the chop. These are not harsh winters. There's nothing going on in here. Caught a 2. Caught a 2. Caught a 2. This rejection of the winter going that way, off we go. You got to use this MACD histogram in the Red River. All right, good work, fellas. We spent a lot longer today. You need some time to get reset. It's sideways volatile, so be ready on your most favorite targets for continuation trades in either direction. Plenty of things to work on. Take good care. We'll see you tomorrow.